I, 27M, found out 3 weeks ago that my girlfriend of 4 years, Jenna, 26F, got legally married to another man named Javier, 31M, while we were still together. She kept me around because I was paying for the apartment, her car insurance, groceries, and basically every bill she had. And the worst part, she told Javier's mother Rosemary that I was too dumb to figure it out. That exact phrase. Too dumb to notice. I need to back up. Jenna and I met when I was 23 and she was 22. I had just started working full-time after finishing a trade certification, pulling decent money doing industrial electrical work. Jenna was working part-time at a dental office. We moved in together after about 8 months and I was covering most of the rent because she kept saying she was saving to go back to school. I believed her. I had no reason not to. She was sweet, attentive, always planning little things for us on weekends. Looking back, I think that was her way of keeping me comfortable and distracted while the real situation developed around me. About a year and a half into our relationship, Jenna started hanging out with a coworker named May, 28F. May was married to Javier's cousin Bernard, 30M. And through May, Jenna started coming around Javier's family more and more. She told me they were just friends from work and that May's family had big cookouts on Sundays. I never got invited. Jenna always had a reason. They spoke mostly Spanish. I wouldn't feel comfortable. It was a family thing. I didn't push it because I trusted her, and honestly, I was working weekends a lot anyway. Here's where it gets relevant. Javier comes from a family that owns property. Nothing massive, but his parents, Rosemary and Ethan, 60s, have 3 rental units and a paid-off house. Javier himself had a decent gig managing maintenance for a property group. But Javier had a problem. He needed to show a stable household for a specific family situation involving custody of his younger sister's kid. He needed to look settled, married, responsible. And Jenna fit that picture perfectly. I didn't know any of this. For almost 2 years, Jenna was essentially living a double life. She was my girlfriend at our apartment Monday through Thursday, and then Friday through Sunday she'd spend with May and her family. She had clothes at Javier's place. She had a toothbrush there. She had a whole second domestic setup, and I was bankrolling the primary one. The way I found out was not dramatic at all, which almost makes it worse. I was at a hardware store on a Wednesday picking up supplies for a side job, and I ran into Bernard. I knew him vaguely from a few times Jenna had mentioned May's husband. We made small talk, and he congratulated me. I asked what for. He looked confused and said something about Jenna and Javier's wedding. Wasn't it great that they finally made it official? He assumed I knew. He assumed I was some kind of ex who was still friendly with Jenna. He had no idea I was the current boyfriend still paying her rent. I didn't react in that hardware store. I bought my supplies, loaded my truck, sat in the parking lot, and spent 40 minutes going through Jenna's Instagram, her actual one, and the second account I didn't know existed until Bernard mentioned her married name. I found it by searching Jenna's first name plus Javier's last name. There it was. Wedding photos from 5 months ago. A small ceremony at a courthouse. Rosemary and Ethan standing behind them. May and Bernard on the other side. Jenna in a white dress I'd never seen. 5 months. She had been legally married for 5 months and still coming home to me, still letting me pay for everything, still sleeping in my bed 4 nights a week. Now here's the thing everyone needs to understand before the updates come. I did not confront Jenna that day. I did not blow up. I did not call her and scream. Because the second I saw those photos, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. See, I'm not the kind of person who reacts and then figures it out later. I sat in that parking lot and I made a plan. A real one. One that would make Jenna, Javier, and especially Rosemary understand that too dumb to notice was the most expensive mistake they ever made about me. The apartment lease was in my name only. The car insurance I'd been paying, also my policy, with Jenna listed as an additional driver. The utilities, the internet, the streaming, all me. For 4 years, Jenna had built nothing in her own name because she didn't need to. She had me for the boring stuff and Javier for the family picture. So I gave myself 10 days. 10 days to act normal, keep smiling, keep paying, keep being too dumb. And during those 10 days, I did things that Jenna and Javier's family are still dealing with right now. I want to be clear about something. Rosemary is the one who called me dumb. Bernard told me that too during our hardware store conversation. He mentioned, almost laughing, that Rosemary kept joking at the wedding about how Jenna's other boyfriend was still paying all her bills and had no clue. Rosemary thought it was hilarious. She thought I was some lovesick fool getting milked, and she was right, until she wasn't. I'm going to post updates over the next few days about what I did during those 10 days. But right now, today, Jenna is living back with May and Bernard because she has nowhere else to go. Javier's custody situation is in serious trouble, and Rosemary hasn't spoken to her own son in a week. I'm not done yet, but I wanted to start here because I need people to understand I didn't snap, I didn't lose control. Every single thing I did was calculated, and I'd do it again. Update coming soon. $68,000. This man sat at his parents' kitchen table, added it all up, and the number looking back at him was $68,000 spent subsidizing someone else's wife, like he was running a scholarship fund for professional liars. And Rosemary, oh, Rosemary, laughing at the wedding reception about this man like he's a sitcom character. Ma'am, the guy you're roasting is an industrial electrician. You know what those people do all day? They work with systems, they trace wires, they find where the current breaks. You pick the absolute worst profession to underestimate because this man's entire career is literally looking at something complicated and going, ah, I see exactly where the problem is. The fact that he sat in that parking lot, found the second Instagram, saw the courthouse photos, and his response wasn't to drive over there and cause a scene but to go home and make pasta, that's not weakness. That's a man who understands that the most dangerous person in any room is the one nobody thinks is paying attention. 4 years of being treated like a walking direct deposit, and his first move is to smile and ask Jenna what she wants for dinner. I've seen enough of these stories to know that the ones who scream first usually lose. This guy went quiet, and honestly, that should have terrified every single person in that family. Update 1. Alright, I promised an update, so here it is. A lot of you in the comments were asking what I actually did during those 10 days, and I get it. Because honestly, if I were reading this from the outside, I'd be losing my mind wanting to know too. So let me walk you through the first 5 days, because that alone is a lot. Day 1 after the hardware store, I went home and acted completely normal. Jenna got back from May's around 8 p.m. that Thursday, kicked off her shoes, and immediately started telling me about how May's kid had a stomach bug and she'd been helping out all day. She sat on the couch, put her feet on my lap like she always did, and asked what was for dinner. I made pasta. We watched a show. She fell asleep on my shoulder. And the whole time all I could think about was Rosemary at that courthouse laughing about how I was bankrolling her new daughter-in-law's real life while I sat around like an idiot. I want to explain something that a lot of people in the comments didn't fully get. This wasn't just about Jenna cheating. Cheating I could have handled like a normal breakup. Pack her stuff, change the locks, move on. But this was a whole system. Jenna, Javier, Rosemary, even May. They all knew. They all sat at that wedding, ate cake, took pictures, and not a single one of them thought, hey, maybe the guy paying Jenna's entire life deserves to know she just married someone else. They treated me like I was a resource, not a person. Rosemary specifically thought it was funny. That's not heartbreak. That's humiliation. And those are two very different things that require two very different responses. Day 2, Friday. Jenna packed her weekend bag like clockwork, told me she was heading to May's for a girls' night and would be back Sunday evening. I told her to have fun. The second she left, I got to work. First thing, I pulled up the lease agreement on my laptop. My name only. Signed 18 months ago when we moved to the current place. Jenna was never added because she kept saying she didn't want her credit pulled. Now I knew why. She probably couldn't risk paperwork showing 2 addresses when she was building a household with Javier for his custody case. I photographed every page, saved it all to a cloud folder. Then I called my mom. I hadn't told her anything yet, but my mom is not the kind of woman who panics. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting, and when I finished, she asked me one question. Did Jenna have any of her own accounts or assets tied to the apartment? The answer was no. Nothing. Not a single bill, not the renter's insurance, not even the parking spot. My mom told me to come over Saturday so we could sit down and go through everything properly, which I did. Saturday, I spent at my parents' kitchen table with my laptop and a stack of statements. Here's what I found. Over the past 4 years, I had paid roughly $68,000 in rent, utilities, insurance, groceries, and car-related expenses that directly benefited Jenna. She contributed maybe $400 a month toward groceries in the first year, and after that, she stopped even doing that. She told me her hours got cut. Looking at it all laid out, it hit different. I wasn't being a good boyfriend. I was being farmed. Now here's where the plan started taking real shape. And I need you guys to understand the geometry of this situation because it matters. Javier needed his marriage to Jenna to look stable and long-term for his custody case involving his younger sister's kid. Rosemary and Ethan were backing that case financially and personally. They were offering one of their rental units as the family home for Javier and Jenna to raise the child in. The whole thing depended on Javier looking like a settled, responsible, married man with a stable spouse and a proper household. But Jenna wasn't a stable spouse. Jenna was still officially living at my apartment 4 days a week, using my address on her driver's license, on my car insurance policy, and spending my money. Which means if anyone looked closely at the actual paper trail, their entire domestic picture falls apart. And I had every single document to prove it. Day 3, Sunday. I drove to the laundromat near Javier's neighborhood. Yeah, I knew where he lived by now because Bernard had casually mentioned the street during our hardware store conversation. And it took me about 10 minutes, on a Maps app, to narrow it down to the exact complex. I wasn't there to confront anyone. I was there to see the setup for myself. I sat in my truck across the street for about 20 minutes. Jenna's car was in the lot. There was a barbecue going in the back courtyard area, and I could see Rosemary carrying a foil tray through the gate. This was the Sunday routine Jenna had been telling me was May's family cookout. It was her family cookout, with her husband, at her second home. Day 4, Monday. Jenna came back to the apartment like nothing was different. She unpacked her weekend bag, threw laundry in the machine, and started talking about wanting to rearrange the living room. I sat there and listened and nodded and agreed that, yeah, maybe the couch should face the other wall. And then she asked me if I could cover her phone bill this month because she was short. I said sure, because I needed 4 more days. That same Monday night, I did something that changed the entire trajectory of this situation. I reached out to Bernard through Instagram DM. Not to expose anything. I played it casual. I told him it was good running into him, and asked if he and May wanted to grab food sometime, the 4 of us. Bernard responded within an hour, said yeah man, for sure, and then, completely unprompted, started venting about how Rosemary was driving everyone crazy trying to rush the custody paperwork before the next court date, which he mentioned was coming up in about 3 weeks. He also let it slip that Rosemary had been pressuring May to write a character reference letter for Javier, and May was uncomfortable about it because she didn't think Javier was actually ready to take on a kid. I now knew the timeline. 3 weeks until the custody hearing. Everything Javier and Rosemary had built depended on that hearing going well, and I had information that could make it go very, very badly. But I wasn't ready to move yet. Because here's the thing about revenge that most people get wrong. If you go too early, they recover. If you go too late, it doesn't matter. You have to hit at the exact moment when there's no time to fix anything but plenty of time to panic. Day 5 is when Jenna did something that turned this from a breakup situation into something much bigger. And that's where I'll pick up in the next update. Because what she did that Tuesday involved Rosemary directly, and it showed me exactly how deep this whole arrangement went. More soon. The audacity of asking someone to cover your phone bill while you're secretly married to another man. I keep getting stuck on that because it's so small and so disgusting at the same time. Like the 68,000 is the headline, right? That's the big number. But it's the phone bill that tells you everything about how Jenna saw this man. She wasn't even nervous. She wasn't tiptoeing. She asked him for money the same way you'd ask a vending machine for change. Just push the button, out it comes, no feelings involved. And then she wants to rearrange the living room. She's interior decorating a life she's already abandoned. Moving couch cushions around in a relationship she threw in the garbage 5 months ago. Meanwhile, this guy is sitting there going, yeah, babe, maybe the couch should face the other wall, while mentally mapping out the demolition of an entire family's legal strategy. And Bernard? Oh man, Bernard is the MVP nobody asked for. This dude is just out here leaking classified family intelligence through Instagram DMs like he's got a newsletter. Rosemary's got court dates, custody timelines, evaluator visits, all this sensitive information floating around her family, and Bernard's just handing it over between memes because someone asked him to grab dinner. Every criminal organization in history has fallen apart because of the one guy who can't stop talking. And Rosemary's whole operation got its Bernard. Beautiful. Update 2. Left off at day 5, and a lot of you were asking what Jenna did that Tuesday. Here it is. Jenna asked me to sign a letter. She brought it up casually while we were eating takeout. Said Rosemary was helping Javier with some family paperwork, and they needed someone to confirm Jenna was a responsible, stable person. She told me it was a general character reference for a housing thing. Nothing major. She had a draft typed on her phone and wanted me to copy it onto paper and sign it. She literally wanted me, the guy she was secretly married away from, to write a reference supporting the life she built behind my back. The letter mentioned Jenna's strong family values, her reliability, her dedication to home life. It was meant to support Javier's custody filing, and Jenna was trying to get me to co-sign the lie. I told her I'd do it over the weekend. She seemed satisfied, but that request showed me this wasn't just Jenna being selfish. This was coordinated. Rosemary knew about me. knew I was still in the picture, and specifically asked Jenna to use me for the letter because an outside non-family reference would carry more weight. They were going to put my signature on a document supporting a custody case built on a fake household. Day 6, Wednesday. I went to the county clerk's office on my lunch break. Marriage records were publicly accessible. I pulled up Jenna and Javier's marriage certificate, seeing it on an actual government document with both their signatures. That was the moment I stopped feeling angry and started feeling focused. That afternoon, I texted Bernard, kept it friendly, steered toward Rosemary. Bernard went on a rant about how Rosemary controlled everything, managed the rentals, decided who lived where, handled the money, and was treating this custody case like her personal project. He mentioned Rosemary had already moved Jenna's things into one of the rental units and was staging it as a family home for the court evaluator's visit, scheduled 2 days before the hearing. He also said Rosemary had been telling extended family that Jenna and Javier had been together over 2 years, basically rewriting the timeline to make the marriage look less rushed. Full picture now. Rosemary wasn't just Javier's mother, she was the architect. She decided Javier needed a wife. She approved Jenna. She knew about me and decided I was useful as long as I stayed ignorant, and she was fabricating a narrative for the court. Day 7, Thursday. Jenna came home. I cooked dinner. She talked about getting a cat, asked if I'd split vet costs. I said sure. While she compared breeds and adoption fees, I was running timelines. Court evaluator visit roughly 2 weeks away. Hearing 3 days after that, my window was closing. Day 8, Friday. First real move. Jenna left for her weekend at Javier's, and within an hour, I drove to the apartment management office. Gave my 30-day notice. The lease was month to month since the original term ended 6 months prior. Submitted it in writing, effective immediately with 30 days. Jenna had exactly 1 month before the apartment she thought was her safety net disappeared. I didn't tell her. Same day, I called my insurance provider and removed Jenna as a listed driver. Took effect at midnight. Before anyone comes at me, she was on my policy that I paid for entirely. Day 9, Saturday. Back at my parents' house with my mom. Showed her everything. Marriage certificate, second Instagram, Bernard's texts about the custody timeline, the character reference letter. My mom asked if I was sure about what I was planning, because once I did it, there was no walking it back. I told her I'd been sure since the hardware store parking lot. That night, I composed a detailed, factual message to the family court, handling Javier's custody case. Didn't send it yet, but I wrote it. Included Jenna's real address, my apartment, her license showing my address, marriage certificate dates versus my lease dates, and a clear explanation that the stable married household presented to the court was fabricated. Jenna didn't live with Javier. She lived with me. I also attached the unsigned character reference letter as evidence. They were soliciting false testimony. Day 10 was Sunday, and that's when everything happened. Saving that for the final update because it deserves its own post. What I will tell you, I didn't just send that message. Day 10 involved Rosemary directly, face-to-face at her own house, in front of her family. By the end of that Sunday, Jenna was calling me from May's bathroom trying to explain herself. Javier was screaming at Rosemary for the first time in his life, and Rosemary was sitting at her kitchen table realizing the guy she called too dumb to notice had just dismantled everything she spent months building. Final update coming. And yeah, I'm still angry. The character reference letter is the thing that elevates this from a messy breakup story to genuine sociopathy. Like, I need everyone to sit with this for a second. They wanted this man's signature, his legal endorsement, on a document praising Jenna's family values. Jenna's family values. The woman running 2 households, married to one man, billing another. They wanted the victim to notarize his own deception. And Rosemary. Rosemary is the one who came up with it. She's sitting there in her paid-off house going, you know what would really seal this custody case? Get the idiot boyfriend to vouch for her. Like she's playing chess with real human beings and she thinks she's the only one at the table who can see the board. And that is always how these people collapse. They get so comfortable being the smartest person in their own story that they stop checking whether anyone else has started reading ahead. Meanwhile, this guy is at the county clerk's office on his lunch break, pulling marriage certificates like it's a Tuesday errand. Grabbed a sandwich, grabbed proof of fraud, back to work by 1. And his mom, I love this mom, she doesn't cry, she doesn't panic. She sits him down at the kitchen table and says, "Are you sure?" One question. Because she raised a man who doesn't need to be asked twice. That's generational calm right there. She heard, "Your son's girlfriend secretly married another man and an entire family has been laughing about it." And her response was, "Okay, let's organize the paperwork." Incredible. Final update, Day 10, Sunday. The day I'd been building towards since that hardware store parking lot. I knew from Bernard that Rosemary hosted family every Sunday afternoon. Jenna, Javier, May, Bernard, all there. I drove over, parked on the street, walked through the open side gate into the backyard where they had a table set up with food. Rosemary saw me first. She had no idea who I was. I introduced myself by full name and said I was Jenna's boyfriend. Not ex, current, the one paying her rent. Jenna was at the far end next to Javier and stood up so fast the chair scraped across concrete. She started saying my name over and over, telling me I shouldn't be here. I ignored her and kept talking to Rosemary. I told her I knew about the wedding, the custody case, the staged rental unit, and I knew she'd told people at the wedding that I was too dumb to figure it out. I asked her if she still thought that. Rosemary tried to shut it down, told me this was her property and I needed to leave, that whatever was between me and Jenna wasn't her business. I told her she made it her business when she had Jenna ask me to sign a character reference for a custody case I didn't know existed. She pivoted to saying Jenna was a grown woman who made her own choices. Javier hadn't spoken yet. Then he asked Jenna, not me, if she was really still living with me. Jenna tried to spin it, said it was temporary. She was transitioning out, about to move fully into the rental unit. Javier asked how long transitioning had been going on. She didn't answer. I did. 4 days a week, 5 months straight. Driver's license still showing my address. Javier turned on Rosemary, asked if she knew. Rosemary talked in circles. The situation was complicated. Jenna needed time. What mattered was the custody case. Javier asked again, louder, if she knew Jenna was living with another man the entire marriage. Rosemary told him to lower his voice. He didn't. May grabbed Bernard and pulled him toward the gate. Bernard looked at me on the way out and I could tell he was connecting it. The hardware store, the DMs, all of it feeding into this moment. I turned back to Rosemary and told her I'd already submitted information to the family court handling Javier's custody case. Jenna's real address, lease records, marriage certificate timeline, and the unsigned character reference letter. Every document proving their household was staged was now in a court file. The evaluator visiting that rental unit in 2 weeks would walk into a home the court already knew was a prop. Rosemary called me vindictive, said I was ruining a child's chance at stability because my feelings got hurt. I told her a household built on lies isn't a stable home, it's a performance. And the person who ruined it wasn't me. It was her. The second she decided the guy paying for everything was too dumb to matter. Jenna followed me to the street, crying, talking fast. I didn't understand the full situation she was going to tell me. Eventually, Rosemary pressured her into marrying Javier, and she didn't know how to say no. She said she still cared about me and that our apartment, our life, that was the real thing. Javier was just paperwork. I let her go through every excuse. Then I told her about the 30-day notice on the apartment and that she had less than a month to find somewhere to live. Told her she was off my insurance. Every safety net she had through me was gone. She asked where she was supposed to go. I told her to ask her husband. Within 2 hours, Jenna was blowing up my phone from May's place. Probably 40 messages. Apologizing, then angry, then negotiating, then threatening to tell people I was harassing Javier's family. Read every one. Didn't respond. The aftermath. Javier's custody case is stalled. His attorney requested a continuance after the court received my submission because their domestic stability argument now has documented contradictions. Rosemary is furious at Javier for not managing Jenna better, and at Jenna for not cutting me off sooner, never at herself. Javier and Rosemary haven't spoken in over a week. Jenna is at May and Bernard's, which is destroying that relationship too because Bernard knows he was my information source and May is furious at him for talking to me. Me? 26 days left in my apartment. Already signed a new lease closer to work. My mom helped move the first load last weekend. Shout out to the commenter who said, get the marriage certificate first. That document was the backbone of everything. And to the people saying I should have just walked away, nah. They called me too dumb to notice. I noticed. Then I made sure they'd never forget it. Go ask your husband. 4 words. That's the entire movie right there. He let her run through the full playlist. The crying, the excuses, the Rosemary pressured me, the you were the real thing. He let her perform the entire audition, and then he delivered 4 words that made every single excuse meaningless. Because what do you say after that? Nothing. There is nothing. You just got told to go use the marriage you chose, and suddenly that marriage ain't looking so convenient anymore. And Rosemary calling him vindictive. I need to talk about this because it's my favorite part of the whole story. This woman orchestrated a fake marriage, staged a rental unit for a court evaluator, solicited a fraudulent character reference, and laughed at a man's expense at her son's wedding. And when that man shows up with receipts, she's the one calling him vindictive. That's not even deflection anymore, that's performance art. She's standing in the rubble of a scheme she built, pointing at the guy who knocked on the door and saying, "Look what you did." And even now, even after everything collapsed, she's not mad at herself. She's mad at Javier for not managing Jenna better. Managing her. Like Jenna's a rental property that needed more maintenance. This woman sees every person in her life as a unit in her portfolio, and she still thinks the problem is that everyone else dropped the ball on her plan. And honestly, the collateral damage is poetic. Bernard's sitting at home realizing every casual DM he sent was a brick in the wall that just fell on his family. May's furious at Bernard. Javier's furious at Rosemary. Rosemary's furious at everyone except the mirror. Jenna's couch surfing at the house of the couple whose marriage she's actively destroying by being there. Every single relationship in this family is eating itself alive, and this man didn't have to lie, manipulate, or break a single law. He just told the truth. To the right people at the right time with the right paperwork. 10 days of smiling and cooking pasta and saying, "Sure, babe, I'll cover your phone bill." And then one Sunday afternoon that rearranged an entire family tree.